All right, this is a fun moment. I'm sitting down with Paul Abbott. Paul is the newly minted director of Shasta Thrive here in Shasta County. Deanna Gallagher, who I think we're also going to spend some time with, is now the chairman of the board. So they've had some kind of structural shifts, and they're all amazing. But Paul specifically, really excited to talk to Paul. Paul does a lot of work in a lot of realms, but he does a ton of stuff specifically with those that are maybe on the streets or in like tighter spots financially. I think he has a lot to say as we're talking about economics and justice. Paul, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Awesome.
I might want to just say, I would
Yes.
consider Deanna as like the executive director, and I'm kind of the operations
Perfect.
director, so to speak, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
perfect.
figuring it out, right? So,
Yeah, we have a lot of history with Deanna. Shasta Thrive has a huge footprint in our community for many years, and you've joined that team. It's a new season,
Yeah.
and so they're kind of restructuring some roles and making space for you. You have talk about some of your history stuff that you've done before, what you're doing with Shasta Thrive, and then lead into what you're currently doing with Shasta Thrive.
Well, I've been basically overseas since '84, mostly in Northwest Africa,
Okay.
with World Vision, Business as Missions, a subsidiary of Mission Aviation Fellowship, doing business as well.
Okay.
And I feel like those decades of doing community-based work, really figuring out, okay, if community development is going to work, then they need to author and own everything they're doing. And there's some principles that we learned by doing that, and made a lot of mistakes too. But in the process, coming back to America a few years ago and seeing the homeless situation, I feel like God just weaved every lesson learned to be able to come in and address the homeless community like a kind of a marginalized people group.
Okay.
Just because of the way things have rolled. We've talked about this before, that it's complex. There's a lot of different kinds of people out there, but I would say there's about a third of the people out there that they're struggling and they really want a hand up. They still have hope.
Yeah.
They're still willing to trust, and they're really ready for us to come out there and give them a hand up and move. Now there's another third that they're kind of comatose with the mental issues and drugs.
Yep.
There's hope for them, because once they see some of the other third go up and move out of homelessness, there's hope for them. Then you have a huge criminalized society out there just because of the justice system, not enough women in the jails, coming out of the pen, out of prison. What do I do now? No one will rent a house to me. No one will give me a job. So you have a lot of different kinds of people out there, but by and large,
Yeah.
I think a person living a normal life confronts on a daily basis the homeless that are the kind of the negative ones to me. They're not the ones that are wanting the hand up.
Okay.
They're often a camp trying to huddle together and make things work. It's often the mentally ill or the con artists or different people that are in our face that kind of paint that picture that it's hard to. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that it really is kind of like there's a I don't want to say unreached people group out there, but certainly marginalized, and we're trying to figure out how to work with them. Right?
Yeah. And we wanted to sit down and talk with you about economics, money, and the idea of justice. Or when we say justice, we're talking about people thriving, people having access to shalom.
Yeah.
And we would state, starting this big subject, this conversation, it's like money is very much a part of shalom, and where economics are out of whack, it's hard for individuals to thrive. So we wanted to spend time with you because you are spending time with that marginalized group, maybe people that we would assume at the very surface level, like, well, they probably don't have money. Let's kind of start more your view, and this may be too broad of a statement, but just economics in general. So you were doing community development type projects in other parts of the world. You said largely West Africa. Like, what did you learn in that setting? What are you learning here as an American citizen about economics, how it works, how it is potentially or not potentially central to people thriving.
Right. Well, it's a complex subject, so I'll pick away at it, right?
Yeah.
From my perspective. But one thing I learned doing it the hard way. I mean, I was working with World Vision, a very large nonprofit. Often we had lots of money,
Okay.
and having the money and having done the feasibility studies and knowing what people did kind of led us into a wrong approach. We would solicit participation from people, but we didn't position them to make their own choices, the what and when. Even if we knew, in general, what they would choose from, what was the menu of needs that they had, that they chose, that they authored and owned, their situation was so important because when it comes to economics, and I've worked with like Tuareg nomads that are living under tents, and they got their camels and their sheep and they're cooking on 3 rocks. They really have nothing, but even them, it's what's important is that they choose the next step and they put skin in the game no matter how poor they are.
Yeah.
And so here, what I would say about the homeless here, the reason they're homeless fundamentally is not a lack of money. It's the worldview that they grew up in.
Yeah.
If you have a great grandfather that had a poverty mindset,
Yeah.
and was not thinking like Jesus at all, then he's going to produce the same thing. And so you have generational mindsets out there that you see, wow, they really need a new way of thinking. They need a savior.
What are
They need
some
new
of those
identity.
things that you encountered, like the mindsets that keep people impoverished or in a negative economic situation?
Well,
If you can think
yeah,
of some examples, yeah.
no, simply put, I'll give you an example. If I have a victim mentality, then the answer is always out there, right? And
Yeah.
I never need to be responsible. So I'm always going to be looking for solutions out there. So I'm going to be trying to get disability when I really could work.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. There's a gal named Melissa. You may have heard of her. She's a cellist. She's gone to Simpson University. Stephen Chin there says she's the best musician here in Reading.
Wow.
And he's given her a free scholarship, even free room at the dorms, but she didn't take it.
Okay.
Why did she not take it? She's afraid
Yeah.
that might keep her from getting her disability as a autistic person.
Okay.
And she wants more assurances. So that mindset there just keeps her from moving on. That's an extreme example for sure. But in general, if we just walk through some of the camps, I would say Redette right here, she's tried to get disability, 6 times. She started being insulted by the judge for not looking for a job, but she's still there. She still has that victim mindset, and we're trying to work her into a position of trust where she'll go to rehab and get off of drugs, because drugs are a huge issue too out there.
Okay.
They make it so one doesn't think right.
Yep.
And they're already not thinking right often.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So you're talking about like the internal structure within an individual that keeps them down. Is there anything that you see in culture that might contribute to that generational poverty? I know you just mentioned, hey, mindsets and kind of things that are passed down. Anything that you recognize, you're like, yeah, this actually does make things challenging, and it may not look like economic justice or fairness or
Right. Now, of course, we're out there to give the hand up of compassion, but we're always living in this tension of we're not there to make their life so comfortable in the camp that they never want to move out.
Yeah.
So God uses pain to orient us towards the right direction, so
Wow.
So there's a balance between getting to know them and offering a hand up, but by and large, our conversation always is going towards fentanyl is on the rise, the meth is killing you, you could be gone next week. Go to rehab, go to Visions of the Cross. We know the people there, they're good. You come out the other side and we'll make sure you don't fall back, because one thing about drugs and homelessness is, why go through rehab and all the pain of withdrawals if when I come out the other side, I don't have new friends in a new community? I'll fall back. And that happens. I meet so many people that have gone through rehab 3, 4, 5 times, and that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But with the promise of make just a promise that we won't let you fall back. We'll make sure you're getting a living situations that's sober. We got the micro shelter communities coming on board, the motel. That makes a huge difference. So we're having people going through now because they're in relationship with us. We visit them at the rehab center. When they come out the other side, we have 2 or 3 advocates coming alongside them. So that's a factor. But let me come back to your question. What we see with Housing First, are you very familiar with Housing First?
I think it'd be great for you to describe anything there that you feel is relevant. Yeah, I think this is a learning moment for a lot of people. And yeah.
Okay, well, I certainly agree that no one's going to go anywhere if they're out in survival mode camping because their things are being stolen all the time. It's they're on drugs. They don't really have much peace. They can't think clearly. So I agree that we need to get them into a safe place. For me, that's rehab. But for a lot of the government mindset and Housing First, they're pushing, no, just get them into a house, even a
Okay.
permanent dwelling, whether on drugs or not.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and we'll try to get caseworkers there, and we'll make the most of it. But if I've learned anything about the homeless is the major cause of homelessness is a catastrophic loss of family or a perversion of family or abuse of family. The relationships never got off the ground.
Yeah.
So they've never, if this is a loving parent, basic loving parent doing their best, and common sense is everything above that, so to speak.
Yeah.
We grew up with parents. You probably did. I did. They weren't perfect, but I knew what common sense was. I knew how to make a decision. Well, they grew up down here. They never saw common sense very often, so they need new friends, new community. And from Jesus's perspective and his passion for the homeless, we know that the church is that new community, and we are their new friends. And Jesus's style of discipleship is a lifestyle discipleship. Let's do life together. So they really need more than just to go to church or to go to a Bible study. They need new family.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the world's narrative. It's just get them into a house.
Okay.
Just give them what they need. You go to San Francisco and they're giving them drugs because at least it's clean drugs.
Yeah.
And Housing First. So what's happening, and this is what the culture that we're kind of in trying to negotiate around. I have talks with government officials about this and other people, kind of appealing to their common sense that no, it's you can't remove fault or responsibility from the person. They need to author their own development process. They need to see themselves as response able, and then they can move ahead. It's not just about discrimination, and it's not just about unlimited compassion. There's a tension there.
It's great.
Yeah, we need compassion, but we need to also make sure they are authoring and owning the way forward. And that's why for what we're seeing and what we have to offer, I think, is help the churches to see, okay, it's a complex community out there, but you can find the person that wants the hand up. We can get them to rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And we can get them out the other side and disciple them in a safe place, and nobody gets hurt. Everybody gets healed. We get healed in the process too, right? Because it's such a Jesus moment when we're reaching out to that lost sheep, getting them out of the tangles of the briars, right? And getting them into safety and back to their family. But yeah, it's I'll give you an example. There's a lot of money out there, government money, that's tied to Housing First. Okay. And we're not taking it. Now I go to the continuum of care meeting because I love everybody there. And I know they want to do the right thing, but we can't take their money. Why? Because they insist that we use a coordinated entry that other agencies are following. And they insist that people will be taken from there on drugs and put into whatever we're offering, whether it's the motel or a micro shelter community, or maybe a tiny home village.
Yep.
They're pushing that so hard. This unlimited compassion is like a sacred God out there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're crippling people, and we're making them continual victims.
Yeah.
You see, and For some people, that'll be okay. They're not victims. They've had some bad breaks and they want to get in there, but that's
And
that's
so
awesome.
the answer there is like, if it's chemical dependency, drug addiction, okay, let's deal with that first. Like, let's actually get them into some sort of rehab setting. Again, for those that want that and they're making a choice to do it, you're not forcing them into rehab or
Not at all. Yeah.
yeah. So you'd get them into that rehab setting, and then the goal would be to surround them with people, like actually give them a new community where there's different stories being
Exactly.
told. They have access to what you say is like this idea of common sense and maybe things that they just were never taught. They start to see someone else doing it. And yeah.
Right.
Okay. Tell me, because I think one of the things that's a real natural obstacle, point of resistance in this conversation, it's a proximity issue. I can't help with the homeless because I'm not with the homeless. And there's a lot of misnomers, maybe judgments that are being cast. What would you tell somebody who's really far from the homeless that might help them get over some of those judgments or obstacles, kind of human things that probably just pop up where we're like,
Sure.
stay away. I don't think I can help there. Yeah.
Well, I had a conversation with a pastor here this morning.
Okay.
He after the symposium for the homeless that we had at Simpson University in October, he wanted to get involved. He really liked the idea of having a micro shelter community on his church, but then he hit some resistance. And so what we agreed to this morning, and this answers your question,
Yeah.
is I had another advocate come to his church a few times with
Okay.
some of these homeless friends that have gone through rehab and now they want a new community.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll just hang with them for a while. We're going to nail down a time in July where he has a service kind of just orchestrated and where he feels like, okay, the Lord's given me this message about the homeless. And then
Yeah.
after that, we're going to have a meeting and we'll do some presentation and they'll meet Mark, Michael, or Artis or whoever we have there a bit
Sure.
more. And our goal will be to find just 2 or 3 people from his fellowship that want to just engage with the homeless and go out with us. Say on every Friday evening, we have a dinner out near the Transformation Center out there on Masonic Hill,
Okay.
hosted by 2 20-something young ladies from Bethel that have
Okay.
been making a hot meal for this homeless crowd for 2 years every Friday evening.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? So that's kind of that's one example. There's other things, maybe the burrito breakfast, going out, handing out burritos, and we could go out. We go out every day. We could just go out and meet some people or something. But that would be the goal. And then once that happens, that spark's lit, right? The people are, wow, this is not impossible. I can come out here, anytime. I mean, we're going to keep people safe, and
Yeah.
talk about the dangers of all the con people out there. It's complex, but it's not undoable by any means.
Yeah. And you're just talking about, yeah, we can get you around, quote unquote, the homeless who are just people. They're just people. And as you start to encounter real people, it's like, oh, okay, maybe the judgments start to fall away. Maybe there's some compassion,
Right.
and maybe a little hope, like, oh, I might be able to bring some strength here. Kind of backing up a little bit, like back to the money dynamic.
Sure.
What are some of your thoughts around, like you mentioned when you're in West Africa? Hey, we had a lot of money, and that maybe gave you guys some, I don't know, maybe some ego or some pride. Okay, we're going to do this to fix everything. And it sounds like you learned by trial and error what does work, what doesn't work.
Yeah, true.
Which sounds like a human condition of ours. Like we learn by
It
doing.
is.
And what are your thoughts about American dynamics, specifically the homeless? Like, is it a money issue, or is it's just like you mentioned earlier, we're really just talking about mindsets? Like if they had more money, would it all go away?
Right. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't go away because the mindset would just continue to create more poverty. I mean, someone wins the lottery's got $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, that would be worth a case study to see what they do with $1 million,
Yeah.
because they still um, the life skills are often not there. That's one reason they didn't keep up with things. Okay, yeah, rent's high and things are being outpaced, but very often in the homeless community, they didn't graduate from high school.
Yeah.
So they've been working jobs that do not allow them to pay $1,000 for rent
Yeah.
or 800 or 900. They at their level, they're going to have to pay something about $400 or $500, which is something I would promote. I'm not against that. We're going to be looking at all kinds of different ways so that we have truly low, affordable housing, low cost housing. That's
Yeah.
got to be done. But the main problem again is a worldview problem.
Yeah.
It's I had a hard time. I made mistakes my first 7 years in Africa. We did more for the people than we should have. And so when I would go to visit a community and say, hey, how's everything going? They'd say, yeah, pretty good, but when are you going to do your next project? And I'd go, well, you didn't fix the well out here. Well, that's your well.
Yeah.
All those things, you've probably heard these stories before. But once we had a paradigm shift and we said, no, they need to author and own their own project, no matter how poor they are. They got to get cash money out of their pocket and pay for it.
Yeah.
Because then they'll own the process. Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing here. See, everybody's a little bit different out there, but by and large, especially because of the pervasiveness of meth, which is just and fentanyl and heroin, and that just complicates everything. There's got to be that choice. I'm going to get out of here. I want new friends. I want new community, and that's where we come in. So
Yeah.
they need to like us, Otherwise, there's no trust. There's no hope. It's just we're just another person that I don't trust.
Do you think here in the West or our like whatever California context, like we, like social service entities, government, are maybe unaware of that author and own piece of the puzzle?
For sure.
Do they
Sure.
more espouse like, no, we'll just give them whatever they need and everything will change?
For sure.
Okay.
It's give them what they need, everything will change. Just within world vision. Okay, within world vision.
Yeah.
My greatest challenge was against vice presidents of marketing, for example.
Sure.
They were pushing us to say, what are we going to do the next 3 years in this community? Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to be responsible. What are you going to do? And I come back to them going, you don't understand community development at all.
Yeah.
It's not about what we do, it's about what they do. Now, we've done our baseline studies, we know we've done the feasibility studies, we know a menu of activities that they're going to do. And I can kind of guess what the basic percentages are going to be. But if you want exactly, then you're just usurping their process of development. You're doing everything for them, and you're just creating handicapped people.
Yeah.
They're already, because they're poor. In any poor African country, Asian, the rich elite have projected this idea to them that you're poor, you're worth less than us, you can't think right. They're really looked down upon, and so they have that kind of identity. They have this poverty mentality. Well, I guess we can't, leave the situation. So the good news that we would bring with our teams is, no, you're God-given. I mean, you have God-given gifts.
Yeah.
He loves you. He's got a plan for your life, even to Muslim countries, whoever.
Totally.
Your choices totally matter. Really? Yeah. And we're going to spend a week here in your village and just ask you questions and learn everything about you. Really? You're going to do that? Yeah. Because your choices are going to matter. We're going to help you in projects that you choose and that you put money in. Now, you know what happened? I'd say about 1/3 of the villages that we went to said, we don't like we want you to come in and do everything for us. So just leave.
Yeah.
We don't want you to spoil our chances of getting a nonprofit coming in here to do things like we've seen done in other places.
Which is the overflow of the aid movement.
Yeah.
Like big things like what was it? Feed the World and all like those songs. And there was just a movement in the 80s and 90s, like give.
Yeah.
The byproduct is codependency, right?
Exactly. Yes. I went over there in the 80s. Did all that.
Okay.
And I will never do that again. I did that in the middle of the Sahara Desert,
Yeah.
and it didn't feel good,
Yeah.
So no, I learned, and well, let me say, when I went out to villages after we did this approach, where they're authoring and owning,
Yep.
their process of development, they wouldn't say, when are you going to do something else? They say, hey, Paul, come and look at this project I did over here. You don't have anything to do with this. And they were proud about what they were doing. night and day.
Which is
So,
empowerment. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
you're talking about like developing people's leadership potential, mentoring, coming alongside. Hey, if I can give you some insight and some wisdom, but this is your life. I'm not going to be a savior.
yeah.
I love it.
But some people just don't get it. I had project managers that were coming out and they're managing their career as a community development worker and they're a project manager out somewhere. And I'm saying, did they author and own? They go, I author and own.
Wow.
Whoa, no, I don't know what they're going to choose. I can't manage that. And I go, well, what are you managing? Are you managing their process of development or is this all about your career? You got
Wow.
to have a paradigm shift here or you just don't fit the team. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna hire somebody else. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But we have those conversations often. And
Yeah.
sometimes people are so poor, you go, how can we make them pay for anything? They don't have anything. I go, it is so important that they pay for it. And I'll tell you one reason. If they pay for it, they believe in it. If they don't pay for it, it's because they're just telling you yes, because they're poor. Any poor person will say, yeah, go ahead and do whatever. I'll benefit somehow. But that doesn't mean they believe in the project.
And
That's
it doesn't elicit growth. Like, yeah, go ahead and do whatever. That promotes more of that victim mentality. I'm not an owner. They're doing it. But when it's here's what I'm doing, there's responsibility, there's
Oh, yeah.
growth. You have to
Yeah.
deal with the consequences of poor choices, which sounds like a great process as a human,
Yeah.
right? We grow
Oh,
by
yeah.
making mistakes. It's not always
It's
perfect, right?
it's so beautiful. I love working with people, the homeless here, and just saying this is your life, and God gave you this life, and He
Yeah.
loves you a lot. And He's got a plan. Choices are everything. Faith, choice, and trust. Let's get going. And they do now about American culture. One thing that really hurts us as
Yeah.
Americans is we become so individualistic that we
Okay.
don't resemble Jesus's culture at all. We don't resemble the Acts 2 culture there
Yeah.
because we're individualistic.
Yep.
We're not group oriented. We're not
Wow.
thinking the homeless problem is a community problem. So we
Yeah.
need to solve this as a community. We need to integrate them into a community. What has America done with its poor for the past 200 years? We segregate them.
Yeah.
We put them off into a housing development place. We get them out over there. Are we thinking, no, we need to bring these people into our community and embrace them.
Beautiful.
Now, you see what I'm saying? So we want the quick fix.
Yeah.
Just get them into a house. I like McDonald's, I want my thing now,
Yep.
instant gratification, pretty much. And we're not thinking about the processes in line here. And then we have the enemy who's really working with the world to expect that. No,
Mm,
just throw money at it. The way Newsom's spending money on the homeless is
mm.
just nuts. It's just segregation again. Let's just get them all over here. Let's just build all these, shelters in Chico, out of town. Just get them out of here. They're not thinking at all about the fundamental cause of homelessness, which is relationship oriented.
Wow.
You see, not about integration. It's always about segregation. It's about quick fix. Let's
Yeah.
just throw money at this. I'm governor now. I want to be the solution for homelessness. And I think he's sincerely thinking that he
Yeah.
would be. I think maybe he has some doubts now, but that harms us because we're in a lot of these African countries, you don't have homelessness. Why? Because it's a community problem. It's a family problem. Here, okay, I don't like it, but you can come sleep on my couch. You can't be out there,
Wow.
whatever. And then drugs, they make it pretty bad too. But
Do you think that right there is true about economics as well? That sometimes living individualistic, I very much espouse an open market, free market system, but
Mhm.
sometimes that personal, like this is about me and my finances, can leave room for injustices to be birthed. Like we're making money, but sometimes at someone else's expense versus thinking about how these economic projects impact others. And
oh, so much.
maybe that's a factor, or what do you think?
Oh, it's a huge factor. I'll give an
Okay.
example. There's a couple that are working closely with me. They're really
Okay.
taking on the St. James Church
All
micro
right.
shelter community. That's going along. Last week, City Council passed that specific micro shelter community to be able to go ahead and build and such. So we're excited about that.
Wow.
But this couple, they have a son here in Reading who's a developer. built apartment buildings and nice
Sure.
apartments, and of course the rent's way out of the reach of the homeless. And my friend said, hey, we're just we're just making the problem worse. We're not offering any low cost. It's all about high.
Yeah.
What can we do? And the friend's response was, well, I'm going to suspend that. I mean, I received that,
Yes.
but I got to put my kids through university, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep doing this maybe later on. And I took that conversation and really held on to the maybe later on,
Yeah.
because there's different things we could do. For example, I'm in a townhouse situation where there's two townhouses like this, and in between there's a tree and a grassy area and such, right?
Okay.
And up in Seattle, they have what they call the Block Project. And so what they're doing, the Block Project nonprofit goes to a block and say, are you concerned about the homeless as a community? Here's what we're doing in other places. We're going to put one nicely done Airbnb, just a 200 square foot place in someone's garden in your neighborhood. And that's going to be for a homeless person that you can choose. There's different people. We have a process of choosing that person, but we want you to adopt somebody in your neighborhood.
Wow.
So they're bringing people in that way. And I'm going to hit up my landlord, who by the way, and say, how about right in the middle there?
Yeah.
We bring they call it here now, an auxiliary dwelling unit, like a grandmother.
Yeah.
Dad, or
ADU.
just ADU, bring an ADU and put that in there. I'll make sure that all the neighbors are okay with that.
Yeah.
All right. And we're going to adopt that person.
Yeah.
Now he may or may not like that, but
I love it.
but that type of thing needs to happen. We need to say it's a
And
community
that's the
problem.
vision. That's the vision of the micro shelters community. It's like, new friends, new relationships, stable environment, supporting each other, community.
Yeah,
Like communities at the heart of the transformation.
exactly. You look to Jubilee, what happened with Jubilee. God was saying, where we go, where we go one, we go all. It's not an individual thing. Where we go one, we go all. Things have to be reset. But when Jesus ushered in Jubilee, it was a permanent thing. I have a quote here. I'll read for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
When Jesus says, today this scripture has been fulfilled from Isaiah, he's saying not just every 50 years, not just every seventh year, but every now, every today, whenever you come across injustice, when religious systems shut people out, this is where Jubilee is fulfilled. And I really believe that. I believe that the kingdom culture is one of where we go one, we go all.
Yeah.
It's not just an individual's problem out there. We're a community. It's our problem. How are we going to address this? And I think that's what God's doing here.
That's so good. I
I'm
love
trying
it.
to keep up with him, but
I love
I
it.
meet a lot of people like yourself and others that believe that.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for what you guys are doing. You're definitely tip of the spear in our community. You guys are very catalytic, important to some really needed transformation. And really good to speak with you. I just want to make sure if there's anything else that you wanted to speak to, any kind of parting thoughts, maybe something I haven't led you towards that's on your mind.
That was an important point that I wanted to mention.
Mm-hmm.
That where we go one, we go all. It's a community issue.
It's good.
And it's so much more doable when we see that it's a bit impossible.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You see how
Yeah.
different people can be, but
Yeah.
we're following Jesus here. And the answer is him and us. And it's him in this homeless person that's coming to him very often. Sometimes they made a commitment to Jesus when they were young at church, and then they fell way off, and sometimes they feel like they're coming back. But it may feel impossible, but that's probably good, right? Because then we have to really trust Jesus in us to work this out. But I think we'll see miracles and lots of testimonies.
I love it. And then how would people find you guys if they want to follow you, find out more about what you're doing? I don't know if there's a website or any social medias.
Yeah, just shastathrive.org.
Okay.
There's a sign up there for volunteering, or I suggest that people just come out with us on a Friday evening, make contact with us.
Yeah.
We have a training answering session from 3 to 5 every Friday, so that's always available.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, we meet, but I think a lot of it's just one-on-one,
Yeah.
let's go out, let's meet some of our friends, and it could be at someone's church. We're ready to come and talk about it with, really with people that we know.
It's
We're
great.
kind of new, see, so we haven't got the micro shelters going yet, right? We haven't got the block project going yet. We haven't got the motel going yet. So they're our friends, but they're in motion, right?
Yeah.
They're ready for that new home, that church family, and it's a cool journey. I really like it.
Yeah. Well, really, really a pleasure spending time with you, Paul. Thanks for jumping on with us. And thank you for what you're up to. So again, shastathrive.org if you want to follow these guys a little bit more closely. And yeah, just appreciate your insight on these big ideas around economics and justice. With that, we're going to say peace. Love you guys. We will see you next time. And again, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Thanks, Lance. Bless you.
Adios.
Adios.